Andrew, you're muted. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for Laughing Dragons MXP Tournament Series. We're bringing you coverage today from Los Angeles, California. This is an 8-seater RCQ with $20,000 of prize money on the line. I'd like to take a brief moment to shout out to Heavy Play. That's the sponsor of this series. Heavy Play makes deck boxes and play mats. They utilize magnets so that you can connect them together. It makes them easy to transport. I actually really like these products. You can use code MODERN20K to get 10% off your order.
It
We're going
also
to
makes
go
it easy with
to
the rounded corners. I'm kind of a fan of the aesthetics of them. But anyways,
yeah, no, those are great too. Thanks for reminding me. We're going to cut down to round 3 now. This is Ricardo versus Edwin. We're going to watch Mono Black Necropotence versus Naya. Let's take a peek.
yeah. So most people are probably familiar with the Necro Dominance deck by now. At this point in its life cycle, this is a deck that looks to play the Namesake Enchantment, draw a lot of cards, pitch those cards to various effects to cast free or discounted spells, and use that to crush your opponent. It will back up this plan with some discard, Thoughtseize, Grief, the usual suspects, and see how that goes. The Naya Aggro deck is much more unusual. Uh, you, we can see cards like a Johnny's, some kind of staples from other decks making it in, but on the whole, I think this deck is going to be a bit weird.
Yeah, I admit I haven't taken a look at this deck list yet, but we're about to see it in live action. Edwin winning the die roll for game 1, leads off with Guide of Souls off of a Sacred Foundry. That's a familiar play.
Certainly is. This is a stock energy start, and obviously from a card perspective, he has no reason to believe at this time that Edwin has any is playing anything unusual. So
Thoughtseize is going to help us out. This looks like an energy deck. That's a pair of lands, Galvanic Discharge, Flage, and a Johnny, I believe.
yes. Wait, do we have? Uh, yeah. Sorry, I'm trying. I mean, I'm actually trying to kind of bring up the deck list to verify things. I'm having a few difficulties on our end, but I'll try to figure out exactly what Naya implies here in just a moment.
Technical difficulties, please stand by. In the meantime, Edwin's going to take a second turn, throw down a Plains and a Johnny with a trigger. A couple of triggers, thanks to the token. A Johnny brings his friend.
Yeah, and this is obviously the bog standard Naya Aggro start. A lot of pressure, a lot of value. It's difficult to attack. It gains life. It slices. It dices. It does whatever you need done. Now the problem with starts like this for the boards and for any deck really against Necro is Necro doesn't really play fair on the angle of card advantage. Once Necro gets its namesake enchantment down, uh, no amount of cards is going to save you. All it's going to matter is does the Necro player have enough life points to do their thing? And the Force of Despair being a free way to handle Johnny here is great for Ricardo. He may not even care that he's down a card. His deck doesn't really care about card traditional sense, assuming it can find its namesake enchantment.
Indeed, that Force of Despair was clutch. Edwin, a little sideswipe by it. Let's cast a Lock Flame for Ricardo's second turn, followed by.
Yes, that is Sorin for MH3. This is a 1/4 lifelink with Extort. And then if you've gained 3 or more life during your turn, it will transform into its Planeswalker side. This card has kind of been a bit controversial in these Necro Dominance decks. Noah Ma at the Pro Tour was a big advocate for this card. However, a lot of other lists have eschewed it, just kind of choosing to play lots of interaction, Necrodamage, Shieldred, and nothing else. On the whole, I don't think there's really consensus at this time, whether it's right or wrong. It certainly does some powerful stuff once you get going. There is some risk, I think, that it's kind of win more. There's some games where your engine isn't really online, and then Sorin doesn't really do that much. But even the baseline body is kind of good. A 1/4 Extort is honestly a decent stat line. So, on the whole, I'm not sure.
Well, here's the Naya that is implied, or I guess announced by the name. We're going to see, is that Malevolent Rumble? Yes. From Edwin. So now we know what the green splash is for. That's going to create a Eldrazi Scion token, which is going to bump the energy up thanks to Guide of Souls.
Yeah, I mean, that only partially explains it, though. I mean, presumably he's not playing green just for the card vulnerable. I mean, perhaps he is, but that would be a bit surprising. Indeed, okay. MTG Meelee's come back up, so we now do have his list, and what I can now confirm is that green is for Malevolent Rumble and Safi Eric Stoddard, which is a real throwback. I'm not totally sure what the idea of Safi is in this list. Obviously, you can do some cool combos with Goblin Bombardment. For example, you can sacrifice an Anthraptor, bring it back with Safi, get 2 more energy. You can bring back a Flage and re-trigger it, although it will just be sacrificed. You can wait. Is there a combo with Extraction Specialist? Is that the joke? I think that must be the idea. Extraction Specialist, Safi, Bombardment is lethal, right?
It is. It is. That is. We've sort of sideloaded a combo into this Naya Aggro or into the Boros energy deck.
Yes, and then Malevolent Rumble's role is to both help assemble this combo, since it does find all 3 pieces, as well as just to fill the graveyard and give incidental value off Flage and off providing kind of fuel for the specialist.
This is clever.
Fascinating list. Yeah, I mean, in general, I like drafting combo shells into this Boros Energy deck, because the fundamental problem with Boros Energy deck is, look, it's just a bit too fair for Modern. Every other deck in the format does something more powerful and more broken than you do. I'm not totally sure what's going on here. It's something about March and grief. I'm a little unsure what Ricardo is conveying, but we'll hopefully get the situation figured out as quickly as we can.
It looks like it's a dead call. We're looking at the card March of Wretched Sorrow, and we've got a Dodge question. But let's just back up a second. And I want to say, once again, I know I literally just said this, but I love shoehorning incidental combos into an aggro deck. Attacking from 2 angles doesn't always work, but having that option is, man, it's just sweet.
Well, and what I like about this one in particular is that Extraction Specialist isn't that unreasonable card to just play in your Boros Energy deck. It's not that bad. Like, your opponent kills your Johnny, you just bring it back for another round. That's honestly kind of nice. Now, I'm sure that the obvious question on people's lips will be, okay, like, so we're playing this combo. What did we cut? What was the casualty of doing this? And as far as I can tell, there was kind of a couple casualties. First of all, it looks like Ocelot Pride got trimmed for space. I do not see any Ocelot Prides in this list. There's just the Guide of Souls. A bit unfortunate there. It also looks like there's a bit less in the way of interaction than you might typically see. There are no static prisons, for instance. There just are the Maledictus charges and a couple of prismatic endings. So yeah, that's sort of kind of been the trade-off here. There's also, of course, none of the black cards that we often see in these Marty lists. There's no of Nick's list, no Bowmaster, nothing like that.
Right. Okay. Looks like they've resolved the judge call. They had what appears to be a light total discrepancy. Sorin was transformed.
All right. So the Sorin is a pretty strange card. First of all, it has Extort. It's a Planeswalker, but it just has Extort. And its main ability is to deal damage equal to the life you've gained to creatures. That's kind of its thing. And I'm not exactly sure how much Ricardo has gained this turn. I got a little lost in that whole March situation, but he might be able to use that to take out one of Edmund's creatures. Alternatively, the Sword can also just plus to create food tokens and use those food tokens to gain life, to deal damage, to do the whole thing. That is the main kind of purpose of Sword, is making food, gaining life, life turning into damage.
Wage from Edwin. Trigger's Guide of Souls. We're gonna lightning helix something. Probably Sorin. Yes, Sorin, not long for this world.
And keep in mind that Edwin's graveyard is actually completely full. Even though only a few cards have been traded off this game, because Edwin has Malevolent Rumble, this Flage is coming back next turn. And there's not a lot that Richard can do about that. Or sorry, Ricardo can do about that.
Yeah, Rumble playing really nice with the combo and Flage makes it an interesting take. And you get to save money by not buying Ocelot Prides. Ricardo, with his
I mean,
third land.
look, I want to be clear that if you want to play this Naya deck at home, you can just play Ocelot Prides in it. You'd play them over some, you could play a different mix of cards if you wanted to.
Orcish Bowmasters is going to shoot.
I think it
Eldrazi
targeted the
Pride.
spawn token, and Edwin is sacking the spawn in response to fizzle the ability and deny Ricardo a token.
Edwin's going to fetch in a turn. Just a little more food for the Flage. Going to fix the mana once again for the Flage. Elegant Parlor is going to come in and surveil. I do love these surveil lands in Modern.
Yeah, so in this game right now, Ricardo's one card in hand is the One Ring, which is kind of like a bad Necrodominance in this deck, and will cause Ricardo's deck to really kind of go into overdrive. The question is he going to live long enough to capitalize on those cards? The ring, unlike Necrodominance, isn't instant. Necrodominance, you can draw 10 cards in a turn. You can go as deep as you want. The ring, you can only draw at a pretty limited rate. Your deck is never going to die to the ring. You have lots of tools to gain the life back, but you could run out of life from the opponent's attackers before you draw enough cards. And with Flage on the horizon, that's a very real risk.
Yep. Another surveil land for Edwin. We're just filling up the bin for Flage.
I think this is an upkeep surveil, perhaps? Is that the timing here? Or no, this is a main phase surveil? Okay.
No, I believe it's main phase, yeah.
Maybe the idea is just to put fodder in the yard so we can leave creatures in the bin for perhaps extraction specialists, something like that.
There it is, Flage. Now, going to stick around. Do a little lightning helix action.
All right, and Edwin is going to go directly upstairs, and I would guess the reason for this is, well, he knows his opponent's best card is Necrodominance, and he knows that if Ricardo finds Necrodominance, every 3 life is in a very real sense 3 cards. So this Bowmaster isn't blocking this turn. If you're afraid of it blocking your Flage next turn, you can kill it then. Your deck doesn't draw many cards. It's not that big a threat. You're not in a rush to kill it. I like this play from Edwin.
Ricardo with a timely 4th land off the top into the One Ring. I'm sure he remembered his trigger. This is going to buy a little time.
Yeah, I mean, the ring is good here. Obviously, Ricardo has a shot now, but this is only step 1. He's far from out of the woods. He's going to need a pretty good set of cards off his ring and his draw steps to not just be dead on his next turn.
Absolutely, absolutely.
He's just going to close that door so quickly.
Edwin in the tank. He knows about the One Ring trigger. So we're just going to set up for next turn with Extraction Specialist.
Plays it, flips it over. It's like, yeah, you might not be familiar with this one.
Oh boy, man, that is so good with Guide of Souls in play. It grabs a Johnny and its token friend. So we're now up to 5 energy.
Yeah, and having the Ajani kind of be the creature that can attack or block off the specialist is actually very convenient because the cat still gets to attack, so we're fine on that front. And the Ajani might not want to attack anyway. It's common that you'd rather have your Ajani kind of on defense. And yeah, look at this heads up play from Edwin. He's like, no, I actually don't want to kill your Bowmaster. I have better things to do. What I want to do is flip my Ajani and get that engine going. I have a red permanent. I can deal a ton of damage. And sure, you have protection now, but this means that next turn you're in huge trouble.
Yeah, what a great setup from Edwin on this turn. Johnny has transformed into a Natadal Avenger, and we are representing all kinds of damage, all kinds of fun interactive Magic plays for the next turn. Ricardo, facing lethal, needs something big on this turn. He's down a point from the One Rings trigger. Takes a look at our cards.
So it looks to me like Ricardo has March and Sorn as his two cards. Now, March is good here. He can use that to exile a whole ton of cards, kind of turn them directly into life, but I'm still not sure it's enough. He's now found Necro Dominance, so we can draw even more cards to turn to life with the March. Maybe that's sufficient to survive this board. It's not self-evident that it is, but it could be. It's possible. Um,
Necro Dominance with only 7 life to play with this is risky, but he
Well,
has
I
to
mean,
do it.
it's only line. He has no other move. Like if he just plays the March, pitching the two cards in his hand, that isn't enough life to survive the turn. It's not enough damage to kill Flage. It doesn't really get him anywhere. So he sort of has to do this. It's my guess that he's planning to play Dragon Dominance, draw the full 6, go down all the way to 1, and then march for every black card in his hand. If he finds a Soul Spike along the way, that could be something. If he doesn't, then we just hope that it's enough black cards to let him survive. It's not a plan without flaws, I would say.
Andrew, you are correct. Ricardo chose to draw 6 cards, and now on end step we are uh, March of Sorrow, targeting something.
Yeah, so he's got a choice here. He can target a Johnny or he can target Flage. If he targets Flage, then of course Edwin can flash back the Flage immediately, and then a Johnny itself, because it's still red permanent, will generate at least 5 damage. Alternatively, you can the Johnny, that prevents the 5 damage on that, but it means you take 6 damage in the combat step from the Flage. So I think it's somewhat of a 6 of one, half dozen of the other scenario. It seems like it's about the same amount of damage either way. Um, he gains 10. I don't think that's enough. Flage is 3, a Johnny is 5, 7 in the attack step. It looks to me like Ricardo is dead.
Yep, we're on team. Hope he makes a mistake.
Well, and I mean, again, this was Ricardo's only line. Like, I think to win this game, Ricardo most likely needed to find a Soul Spike off that draw 7. He had to find a Soul Spike a Johnny, and then also march the Flage for lethal. Which is possible, but I think would have required him to basically draw a Soul Spike in exclusively black cards. It required a pretty fortuitous set of draws, and did not happen. I think it, unfortunately, his One Ring came out a little too late. Ricardo didn't have enough time to get his engine going, and the Naya Aggro deck is going to slam the door.
Indeed, it's academic at this point. Edwin's just going through the motions. There are free spells in the mono black Necro deck.
Well, that's true, but I've seen Ricardo's hand and he doesn't have them.
All right, game 1 goes to Edwin with Naya Aggro, an interesting take on the Boros Energy Shell. We've slid an infinite combo, 3-card combo, into the aggressive deck. Didn't
Yes.
need it, but nice to have.
So now we go to the sideboard games. As I probably mentioned before, the Boros Energy sideboard is mostly dedicated answers to specific problems. It's mostly ways to handle combo decks or synergy decks in the format. And Necrodominance isn't really that. This is kind of a mid-range fight, to at least some extent. And as a result, I don't think Edwin's deck is going to change very much. He could put in Path Exiles if he wanted to, try to get a few of the Grief Scam creatures, maybe a Shieldred here and there. That's fine. They might be slightly better than something in his main. Not a huge upgrade, not a huge deal. And the rest of his sideboard, probably not coming in. I don't expect to see Edwin changing a lot here. Maybe these paths, but it's not a big deal one way or the other. That's honestly, I think, something that's generally true about these energy decks. If it's a fair matchup, they don't sideboard. On the Necrodominant side, we might see slightly larger changes. I think that Ricardo is probably going to want to bring in any sweepers he has access to. And in this case, it looks like he has access to one Toxic Deluge and one Damnation, both going to play here. It also looks like he has a Fatal Push in the sideboard. Might want that, sort of unclear. Might just want to rely on the free spells. Hard to say. I think different players might make different decisions there. He also could opt to have Torok Dreadcanter, which does the protection from white. I suspect he won't do that just because Galvanic Discharge existing means that it's not that hard for the Naya Aggro to handle. But maybe he figures, look, they only have so many discharges, they're going to be a bit overloaded, and Torok is unkillable by everything else, so I'll throw it in. So again, I expect a little bit more changes on Ricardo's side, but Edwin's deck to remain mostly the same.
Do you feel that Ricardo playing with some number of Sorin changes the calculus on Path to Exile for Edwin?
Maybe. The thing is, Edwin's existing removal isn't really toughness gated. That is, I know that the discharge deals only 3 in theory, but because Edwin's deck has plenty of other ways to make energy, you'll often be able to get that 4th point off it. Additionally, there's these prismatic endings in the main deck that are also a pretty convenient way to handle Sorin, and you don't really want to be pathing a creature on turn 2 anyway. You'd prefer to wait on your paths, to do them later in the game, because ramping your opponent to a turn 3 One Ring or something is a bit of a disaster. So my guess is the Sorins won't change much for Edwin. I don't think he really cares about that. But I might be wrong. Certainly, it is a card you'd rather kill than not. It is a bit annoying, blocks pretty well. Flip side can be good. But my guess is no.
Okay. I also saw a pair of an additional 2 copies Force of Despair in Ricardo's sideboard. Are we going up to Force of Despair, or what do you think?
I'm not sure if Force of Despair is actually good enough. I mean, it's okay. Look, the scenario where they play a Johnny and you 2-for-1 yourself to handle both pieces isn't that good. I mean, to be clear, that isn't much better than just fatal pushing both of them, except that it costs 0. It's not that great an exchange. Force of Despair is mainly for Nadu. I don't think he's going to want too much of that, just because, I don't know, you don't want to 2-for-1 yourself. It's a grindy mid-range mirror. Mostly, you can ignore the Ajani's once your engine is online. You're just getting so much life that, the token doesn't matter very much. So my guess is that Ricardo won't have more spares, but I might be wrong. I mean, they're not terrible. It wouldn't be crazy to play them. That's just my suspicion.
Sure. All right, players are shuffled up, ready for game 2. Ricardo's on the play since he lost the first game. Looks like we're mulliganing.
Yeah, I believe Ricardo had a 1-lander there. I'm going to send that back pretty quickly. Something I would also note about the Necro deck is, all right, traditionally, when you play a Thoughtseize-based mid-range deck, your deck doesn't mulligan very well. The reason for this is Thoughtseize-based mid-range decks, you want to kind of trade a lot of cards 1-for-1, so being down cards is kind of more harmful than usual, especially against another mid-range deck like the Naya deck here. Cards are pretty important. The Necro deck actually isn't really like that. In some ways, a 5-card hand that has Necrodominance is often better than a 7-card hand that doesn't. The most important thing is that on turn 3, Necrodominance hits the table, and that's going to mean Ricardo is a little bit more able to mulligan. He's a little bit more able to ship the marginal hands. He has more kind of latitude to find those Necrodominances.
Ricardo was rewarded with his diligence by Edwin also taking a mulligan in solidarity. So both players going down to 6. Huge fan of Ricardo's Pokemon tattoo. Love it. Hope he watches this later.
I really appreciate you pointing out the most important aspects of this match.
No problem. Let's do it. Going to 6. Ooh. Ricardo looking at another landlight hand. Got 2. Takanuma and a swamp.
Well, 2 might be fine. I mean, you certainly keep something like 2-land Thoughtseize Necrodominance, although I can't actually see if he has an basic enchantment here.
Don't see Necrodominance. I see Surgical, Orcish Bowmasters, Soulless Jailer, and Not Dead After All.
Oh, right. I forgot to bring up Surgical and sideboarding. I wasn't sure if Carter was going to do this. So Surgical is traditionally bad in a mid-range fight. It over-ones you. That said, the Mono Black Necro deck has a lot of problems with Flage. It's fundamentally a recursive threat. It's very annoying. Your deck doesn't have a lot of ways to exile it. Even if you do have a few Bogart Trawlers or whatever, it's pretty hard to deal with. So it is possible that Ricardo boards in Surgical to handle it. I'm not sure exactly how many he wants. I'm not sure how deep he went on that. But yeah.
Well, Ricardo did see Extraction Specialist and Malevolent Rumble in the first game, so he knows something else is going on out of Edwin's deck. I don't know if that justifies the surgical extractions, but it's definitely kind of a heads up, like, what am I going to do about this unknown element?
But and the fact that you're handling Flage at the same time means I think surgicals are pretty reasonable. The Soulless Jailer is a little bit more questionable, but I don't know. It seems a bit heads up to me. I mean, maybe Ricardo has seen a list like this before. Maybe he's familiar with this combo. He's like, yeah, this stop the specialists that stop Safi. It completely gets them. It isn't crazy. It's also at worst an 0-4, which I understand sounds stupid, but I don't know. Edwin's fundamentally playing a deck that attacks with smallish creatures. Soulless Jailer can block them.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a while for those things to get up to 4 power. Arena of Glory and Temple Garden for Edwin on his second turn is going to cast Malevolent Rumble.
Additionally, something I want to call attention to about Soulless Jailer is Soulless Jailer does not stop Flage. That may be important. Because the way Soulless Jailer is worded is it's permanent cards in graveyards can't enter battlefields, and players can't cast non-creature spells from graveyards, which means players can cast creature spells from graveyards. It like just barely works, but it does. So this is going to stop the Safi, stuff. It will not stop Flage.
Ricardo's got to be feeling good about the graveyard hate now after seeing the Safi Accelerator milled.
Absolutely. Definitely gonna feel smart, happy with that decision. Totally agree. I also see that Edwin is boarded in Cast in the Fire, which I did not expect. But Cast in the Fire is a good answer to the One Ring. It's a bit narrow. It doesn't do much else. But, I mean, look, Edwin's saying, fundamentally, your deck needs one of these kind of 8 permanents in play to operate. It needs Necrodominance or the One Ring. And I'm just going to board if he answers the One Ring. I don't have a great way to kill Necrodominance, but sometimes your draw engine just won't be that. And then I'll remove it.
Soulless Jailer sends a message for 0. Love it.
Would you say that when you play, you often send your creatures in for 0 when you think it won't matter?
Absolutely. Always attack with Ornithopters.
All right. Good to know where you stand on the important issues.
It's another achievement. Achievement unlocked. Attack for 0.
Oh,
Edwin. Right. Edwin with Fetch, Shock, and the Sacred Foundry. He's got 4 mana if he wants it. What do we got? Goblin Bombardment. And Johnny.
And this is the synergy that makes Goblin Bombardment so good in these decks, just as a fair card. This is the reason that these decks are allowed to play this card even without the combo that it has. What's going to happen here is Lord Torrance is going to get pinged, it's going to die, and unless Ricardo's removal spell, Johnny's then going to transform, make a cat, and kill another thing. It is an incredible interaction. Being the red permanent, the sack outlet, and a decent card all in one.
Agreed, agreed. So not dead after all. A little bit of a non-move with the Soulless Jailer.
Yeah, I think Ricardo tried to not have turned it all, not after all there, and everyone was like, "You control Cold Steel." Ricardo's like, "Oh, right, awkward." A little bit
Fortunately,
of a misstep there, but not a huge deal. Not probably wasn't doing all that much this game anyway.
there's a main phase Bowmasters from Ricardo. Got another token and gonna ping something. Edwin's face. Edwin's face has been pinged. He's at 12 life from fetches, shocks, and errant Bowmaster triggers.
Yeah, Ricardo didn't want to ping the cat token because he knows that if he does, the Goblin Merc can then fizzle the trigger and kill the Bowmasters itself. So what ends up happening is essentially he loses a 1-1 and the Bowmasters to kill just the 2-1 cat. Doesn't seem like a worthwhile exchange. So he goes upstairs instead. I think this is the correct play, most likely.
Edwin's in the tank with 4 cards in hand. Arena of Glory can change the math here.
I mean, Arena of Glory is usually its best when Flage is involved, and I don't think Edwin has so far found Flage. It does mean that if he does, it will be even more devastating than usual. But we know here in the booth that Ricardo just has surgical extraction at the ready. So I don't think Arena is going to be a huge player in this game, although it might do something.
Edwin says, I'm done taking damage for my lands. There's a basic mountain in my deck. I'm going to grab it. Call it the Zane Raptor.
Raptor, read Soulless Jailer again. There's definitely been a lot of Soulless Jailering in this particular game.
Definitely the ulcer of this particular game.
Yes, so there Edwin cascades into the bombardment. He can't cast it to the Soulless Jailer, but it's fine. He just declines, doesn't pay the energy. No problem. The Raptor still got something done.
Follow up is another Johnny, and Soulless Jailer is dead.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Edwin chose to cast the Raptor before activating the Johnny. And the issue is that he doesn't have enough. I think it's a wait. Hold on, did he not have enough creatures to kill the Soulless Jailer prior to the Raptor? Was that what happened there?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, because if he did, then he sort of denied himself the option to hit a non-creature spell if he was going to kill it anyway. But it's possible. But I think he might not have been able to. Yeah. So mm.
Ricardo.
Regardless, Edwin is in full control of this game. Look, the Necrodominance deck is not a good deck if it never controls Necrodominance. Really, really simple argument, I know. But in this match, Ricardo has so far never had the Necrodominance for more than one singular turn. And as long as that's true, I like when chances. I like his chances more if he combos opponent ends the game this turn.
That would happen, except surgical extraction is going to solve the problem.
Right. The surgical that Ricardo is holding for Flage. So I'm just going to take out Safi Exotter. 0 mana, stop the combo. Pretty nice. Also going to be stopped forever because all the Safis will be exiled. That said, I don't think anyone's going to be too broken about this because, frankly, he has like 8 creatures in play.
Indeed. The last card is revealed thanks to surgical extraction. That's a prismatic omen in Edwin's hand. Now, Edwin's already up a game and looking good here. Prismatic Omen threatens to take care of any problematic permanent that Ricardo deploys next turn. I don't see Ricardo coming out of this.
Yeah, I mean, the Necro deck is capable of coming back from some pretty absurd looking spots, using its namesake enchantment. You know, you can pitch a lot of cards, gain a lot of life, things turn around in a hurry when that happens. But I'm worried that because Edwin can deal so much damage between Goblin Bombardment, Ajani, and the attack step, that it just isn't going to be possible for him to have enough life in order to make one of those miraculous comebacks.
Edwin pings Bowmasters off the field and then attacks with 5 creatures. Ricardo has a chump blocker if he wants it. And he does. So we're going to take some damage. Ricardo down to 13. Oh, just kidding. We're going to back that up and figure out combat again.
I see. Edwin's thinking about if he wants to let his Ajani die or throw it at him for damage. Yeah, this makes enough sense here. Edwin is saying, look, my board is massive already. I don't really need more on board advantage. What I need to make sure is that your life total is low enough, because again, your namesake card turns every single life point into a card. So rather than take out your one token, I'll just deal another damage to you, deny you another card, make it even more impossible for Necrodominus to get this game done. And Ricardo draws a land. That, I think, is going to do it.
Yep.
Notably, Edwin could have chosen to transform his Ajani there to get another kind of activation. He's choosing not to do so. I assume because he flipped it at will with Goblin Bombardment. This way, if something happens to his Ajani, if Ricardo, March of Wretched Sorrows it, or something of that nature, he just has another Ajani ready to flip right there.
This Boros Energy Shell, we've already mentioned it a number of times how good it is. It continues to impress me every time I see it. Bombardment is going to put a bunch of creatures in Ricardo's face. And that is the match. Edwin takes it 2-0 over Mono Black Necro. Andrew, what did you think of that match? Did you like this green splash? What are your impressions?
I don't mind it, but I don't think cutting Ocelot Pride is legal.
Okay.
Yeah, my take is it's reasonable to play this combo. It doesn't cost you too much. It's mostly pretty reasonable Magic cards. I don't think that playing Vulnerable is too bad. I like that it fuels Flage. Incidentally, Extraction Specialist and Safi both seem like pretty reasonable Magic cards just have around. They can do some cool things even without the combo. Sack your Johnny to Goblin Bombardment, get it back. Your Johnny Dice Rule, you get it back. You can sack a creature to Goblin Bombardment, then Safi that creature back into play. All of this stuff. There's plenty of shenanigans to be had. That said, I think Ocelot Pride is like one of the best cards in the deck. Honestly, one of the best one drops in the format. So I probably wouldn't cut Ocelot Pride, especially given that Extraction is another way to gain life. It seems like it works really nicely with Ocelot Pride. So probably what I would say is I don't mind the combo, but I'm not sure I would configure it the same way.
Sure thing. Fair enough. All right, folks. We will take a short break and we will be back with our 4th round in just a few minutes. Please stick around.